proper introduction. Well, we've got John Gray here, who wrote and directed Household Demons, which you just saw. And I was just saying to John before I hit record that I looked up your IMDb, and you have a long, very long, successful career in television and film. And you had just, and I had said how cool it is that someone of your accomplishments is jumping into, making really original creative short films. It looks like just doing it for the love of it.
Well, thanks, first of all. Yeah, it's really weird. In some ways, I feel like I've kind of come full circle in an odd way. I started when I was a kid making short films. When I first got bitten by this, filmmaking bug, I was 11, 12 years old. And I would make films on, an old regular 8mm camera. And then I graduated to a Super 8 camera, wow. And then I was lucky enough to go on from there eventually. It took many years, but eventually had a career in Hollywood and still do, I think. With the pandemic, no one really knows what's what anymore. And what happened was that I made, a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to make a short film as a proof of concept piece for a feature film we're trying to raise money for. My manager suggested to me, why don't you take like a sample scene from the script, make it as a short film, and that might help raise money for it amongst producers and financiers. So I did that, and it was a great experience, and it came out really, really well. And in fact, we got such a good response to it that we just sort of went out with it to festivals on its own as a standalone thing, and won a lot of awards and did very well. And that sort of got me back into short film mode. I just thought, man, this is great. You shoot them fast. In my case, I'm able to work with a lot of my collaborators I've worked with many, many years. And I kind of love the do-it-yourself aspect of it now. My wife makes the costumes, and I go pick things up, and we drop things off. It's just it's very different than the way I'm used to working in the professional movie making world, but it's just such a blast. And we're loving it, and we also love going to festivals. It's one of my favorite things. I love meeting other filmmakers and watching other films, and discussing ideas. It's just great. And it's very heartbreaking this year we can't do it. We're all kind of trying our best doing this. But that's my long-winded answer to how I got started making short films again after 30 years.
Well, the fun you have with it comes through, even though right now we're about to talk about Household Demons, which even though it's just a really well-made horror film and compelling, and obviously you launch in with you introduce it with your quotes about addiction, and so there's the rather serious subtext of the film is right there for us, but it still looks like you had a good time.
It was a good time. That film came about originally. I had written that scene as the opening, as sort of like a prologue for a feature script I was writing, and we were going to meet that boy in the feature film when he's an adult later on in the movie, and ultimately that script changed. It just didn't make sense anymore. But I always kind of, like everything I write, I kept it tucked away. And when I was thinking about, I'd love to make another short film, it's time, I remembered that and found a way to flesh it out with the themes of addiction and that kind of thing. And usually I make my shorts in LA, even though I live in New York, because most of my crew is in LA. But this time I decided to try one in New York, and I got a bunch of great people together, great collaborators together. My wife produces with me. And so we had a lot of fun. It was just 2 days of shooting in Queens in December of last year. And, actually, just as I was about to lock the picture at the end of January of this year, COVID hit. And so we were just like dead in the water for months because we couldn't get any visual effects. We couldn't get anything done. But finally, in June and July, we were starting to get visual effects dribbling in, and we were able to finish it at the end of July.
I'm so glad you were able to. That's great. When you were telling me you were shooting in December, I thought, wow, just down to the wire,
Yeah,
as far as being able to have people together.
yeah.
Man, your visual effects are fantastic. I mean, your your monster is such a great monster.
Oh, great, great.
Um, and then I have to give you the shout out compliment that just your introduction of the mom. You know, you cover the addiction thing with that not with the dresser, but then the toenail thing. When I see something like that, I think I actually, even the second time I saw it, I verbally went, ah. It's just such a you're the sound. I mean, you obviously have a great mastery of filmmaking, but horror is. I have a 12-year-old who every Friday and Saturday night we watch a horror film during the pandemic because she thinks horror is the coolest thing in the world now. And horror, sound is everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And the sound in your film is so wonderfully done. And that toenail rip sound is, oh my God.
Yeah, yes. Well, I have to say that, the movie was really, of course, designed to be seen in a theater. We have an amazing 5.1 mix, and when you can hear the sound in that atmosphere, it is great. I mean, I have to say it was thrilling for us to be able to do it. But yeah, sound is really important. I mean, for any movie, but particularly for horror, because so much, it's a whole other dimension, it's a whole other layer of fear that you can introduce and atmosphere. And I work with a very talented sound designer named Mason Kopeikin in LA. And I've been working with the company he's attached to for many years. And, we just love, I write a lot of it into the script because I hear it. And so it is a very important, and the toenails also were, this woman is tearing herself apart. And so, that seemed to be a good metaphor for that, and something I knew would get a would get a response, because it's one of the things I really, whenever I hear someone being tortured by pulling their nails out, I just want to run away. And so I thought that would be a pretty creepy thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, between that and the what you do with her eyes, besides introducing us to the monster refreshingly early, like you don't hide it from us. But then you absolutely, the addict mom is such a monster in his life. And it's a superb story. I mean, so efficiently told in this short film. You tell the story of this boy, overcoming his fears of his drug addicted mom. And and also what you do with the sound where the mom is speaking and you hear the son's voice and you hear probably the father who's no longer there's voice. It's just, you tell such a complete story so efficiently.
Well, thank you.
Really,
It's great to hear. And that's, it's one of the things I love about short film. It's really challenging to try to tell a coherent story that's going to have some resonance with an audience in a very short amount of time. It's a real challenge. And I mean, it's always a challenge to be economic in storytelling, but in a short film, it's even more key, and it's great to hear that we succeeded.
Yeah, you clearly you appreciate the horror genre. Did you? Well, you said it was sort of part of a feature, but was the whole thing a horror idea? Were you aiming to have fun with that genre, or?
Yes, I love horror. You talked about your daughter. I think you said she.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching horror movies, because that I loved as a kid. We used to go to the Fort Wayne movie theater in Brooklyn, and I just couldn't wait every Saturday to go. There'd be a double feature, it'd be a horror double feature, and some of them were just awful, slasher, bloody, gory. I didn't like those as much, but I love the Gothic, the classic Gothic, haunted house and haunted cemetery. I love that. And when my career began, I really didn't focus on horror films, at all. I did a lot of historical films, a lot of just emotional, character-driven films. And then when I got a chance to do a television series, it was really a horror show, but melded with emotional, character-driven drama. It was like this interesting hybrid. And we tried to give it a lot of gothic, horror elements. And I loved every week being able to direct that show and bring those elements to it. And how can we scare the hell out of the audience this week? And so that kind of brought me back to the love I have for horror. And my wife and I, we devour every horror film we can. And I want to make more.
And just for anyone watching who doesn't want to jump on IMDb, you're talking about The Ghost Whisperer. You were the creator of The Ghost Whisperer, which was a very effective supernatural series that ran for a long time.
It did. It ran for 5 years on CBS, Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it was just a great time. There was a very family kind of atmosphere on that set. We all loved each other, and we got to do some really interesting things. And my thing was every week we're going to make a little mini horror movie, and then there's going to be some really emotional thing about death and closure, and wrapped up in it. And so we just tackled it that way, and we were able to do a lot of really fun, bizarre, crazy things, and hopefully some very scary things. And we made people cry every now and again. So.
For sure, yeah, no, and it's nice to see you getting to explore the genre.
Yeah, I love it. I still develop things in Hollywood, and there's always a series I'm working on, but it's so glacially slow, and particularly now. No one really knows what the world's going to look like after COVID, and so what do they want? So it's really been a great sanity saver for me to be able to make these short films and stay creative, which is, I think, is a key thing to do in a pandemic like this, as much as you can. So it's been just a blast, a total blast.
And since we're if we I know you mentioned your sound person. Are there other people who deserve a shout out right now with some of your collaborators?
Well, you mentioned visual effects, so my very dear friend Armin Kevorkian, who runs a company called Encore Hollywood, and Armin and I go back to Ghost Whisperer back in 2005. He was in charge of our visual effects, and the great thing about Armin was that you could bring him something, an idea that you have about something, and then he'll go off and take it and bring you back something so much more expanded and more interesting than you had thought of. And so he's been very good to me in intervening years when I've come to him with a thing like this. But it's a low budget thing. I have no money, and he always comes to our rescue and does great visual effects. And he's a wonderful guy. Ross Berryman is my DP, who's I've worked with him a few times, and in the real world, I call it. Just a brilliant DP. Been doing it for a long time. And, I guess I'm lucky in that I've had this long career in film and television. So I've learned a lot, and I've learned how to be economic in time, because in TV, there's never any time to do anything. And I have this really, really deep pool of people I can call on who, like me, have been doing it for 30 odd years. And I can tap into all that expertise, so we can give the actors in the piece a good experience. We're not going to do an 18-hour day. We're not going to be wondering what we do next. It's efficient, it's professional, and everyone's going to have a good experience. And that helps people, with the actors that we get, it helps them to, want to be in the movie because they know they're going to have fun and they're not going to be worked to death. They'll have a good experience.
And it shows something that people you've worked with want to work with you again. Not everyone can pull out the Rolodex and call the person that they worked with before and get a yes. So that's a good sign.
I guess so. I mean, I love making movies, and I think an amazing privilege to get to do this with your life. And so I try to bring that with it. And people who don't have that attitude, who think about it as this, it's hard work and I hate it, and why do I have to do? Those people tend to fall away. And the people who stick with me are those who have that shared attitude, and that's what we bring to the work. And as a result, we just have a blast all the time.
And I was going to ask, you mentioned Armin with visual effects. Did he significantly help with the monster look? Because it's such an original monster where it sort of has tree elements
Yeah, yeah.
and sort of Gothic Greek almost elements.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun just talking back and forth, and I would send him reference photos. Like I would find these really gnarly trees. I'd just walk around parks until I found these ancient trees. I would photograph those trees and I'd send it to him. And I would look at these, twisted branches and these diseased tree branches and send them pictures of that. And yeah, there's a little bit of a metaphor for the family tree idea. Addiction being sometimes hereditary. And just like what sort of demon is this? What can best represent that need, that addiction. And so we just kind of went back and forth. He would send me a sketch, and I'd say, "Oh yes, well how about this, and what about that?" And before you know it, it's complete. Or actually, it's never really complete. It just gets to the point where you have to finish because the movie has to be done, and this has to be it now. So otherwise we're always going at it. But he's a great collaborator.
For sure, and it came out great. I mean, everything came out great. Your cast did a wonderful job. Obviously, the look is great.
There are a lot of visual effects in that movie that are completely benign that you'd never notice. For instance, we had a dilemma with the location we were shooting at because the whole movie takes place at night. But I couldn't ask the cast and crew to do all-nighters. We'll work from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. I'm not gonna do that. So we figured out a way to tent in the sides of the house in advance so that we could shoot our exteriors. And then once we moved inside, we would finish tenting in the front porch. But the problem is the sides of the house was tented in. And so it would be visible on camera, ladders and tents. And so Armin was able to just take those out and add houses in the background and trees. So it gave us the ability to come in the night before, build those tents, and then just take them out from the shot. So there's just I love visual effects in that way too, things that you never know are even there.
Well, great work. And then, yeah, you wouldn't know. That just looked like, Queens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have never guessed that you had to have all kinds of things removed from there by visual effects.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for a great film. One thing with Sherman Oaks Film Festival, we didn't have a horror category, I think, until this year, because we realized we weren't getting enough horror sent in.
Oh.
And as a horror fan, I'm sure you'd agree. Like there's a dearth of really good horror. I mean, with a 12-year-old girl who wants to watch horror every weekend, oh man, half the time I think we stop about 20, 30 minutes in because she's like, this isn't interesting. This isn't scary,
Yeah.
So
I recommend Relic. Have you seen Relic?
No, not yet.
I think it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I think it's Netflix. Very creepy, very, very, very good movie.
I'll write it down as soon as we're off. Well, before we go, we're sort of bumping into our 15-minute self-imposed limit. Anything else you want to add before I hit stop on the record?
I just want to thank you guys for including us, and also everyone who watched. It's important to support film. It's important to support short film, particularly, but especially at this time when there's so much uncertainty in the world, and I think people need movies more than ever, and maybe even rely on movies more than ever. So I just want to give a good shout out to the audience for tuning in and helping us support.
Fantastic, and thank you for supporting short film by making short film. I love shorts. It angers me every year when the Oscars come around and they try to, for 5 seconds deal with the wealth of material that's being made in under 30-minute, under 45-minute, wherever you draw the line for short.
Yeah,
it's short films really deserve a lot more attention than they get. Oops, yeah. I might be frozen for a second here.
Well, you're back.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, I'm going to hit stop.
Okay.
And it was a pleasure talking about Household Demons with you.
Same here.